Nolan Wells' friends are already regretting this second interview they did with Officer Tatum. Oh, no. These boys is regretting this interview, bro, because when the experts, the behavioral scientists, the journalists, when the experts got a hold of this interview, bro, oh, they broke it down. They psychoanalyzed. They unraveled this interview to the core.
Ex-Officer Tatum has once again returned to Mississippi to interview the young men that were with Nolan Wells on the day he went missing and then ultimately was found deceased. There's a lot in this interview that I want to get into and break down, so let's get into it.
What is your thoughts on that phone call to Cito? Some people have gone out and done enhancements to the audio, and in doing that, created a transcript manually. It doesn't appear that the transcript was derived from an automated system or have any, in my opinion, real integrity with it. So what do you guys think about that audio?
From this very first question, I start wondering, is ex-Officer Tatum being paid by the attorneys that represent these young men or the young men's families themselves? Because that is a question that is very loaded and it's leading towards innocence. It lets the interviewees know that the interviewer has a bias, and thus it's more about getting out a narrative than of finding the truth.
But they keep going back to Officer Tatum. They keep going back to him. And this has been the issue that we have had from day one. Tatum and his defenders will say, why do you have a problem with him just seeking answers? He's not seeking answers if the questions he's asking is already tinted with a bias of, I think you're innocent. Ask the questions, whatever answers they give, right? We live with it, right? Right? We can't blame you for their answers if you asking questions, but when you ask the questions as if, hey, I believe you're innocent, prove these niggas wrong. Like, come on, man. What? Just, go sit down with a neutral platform. Go sit down with somebody who is neutral, who don't have a bias, who don't think you're innocent or don't think you're guilty, who just want to look at the facts of the case, survive that interrogation, and then we can talk. But if the only interviews you've done is with Tatum, and Jay Marie already exposed that Tatum is linked to this person, that's linked to that person, that's linked to Turning Point, that's linked to this person's parents, he's too connected. He's on the inside. He knows you guys already, bruh. So this interview, like, I'll be real with y'all would have been better off just interviewing yourselves. Because Tatum being implemented in it, you lose all trust automatically.
Now, I want to be clear. I do not know what these boys did or did not do, but when you release videos like this, you open yourselves up to a certain level of scrutiny that was not there before. And that question doesn't sound like you are interested in an unbiased answer. You ask the question in a biased way that makes the interviewees feel more comfortable.
Well, I can go ahead and say that as you posted that clip of all of us on the boat, as it's rolling, not rolling, but right there sitting in the water, Wyatt's on the phone with Cito in that clip. I mean, he's on the phone. Wouldn't you think that you would have seen Nolan on the bottom of on the floor or something, or scrambling around, or everybody in a small space on the boat looking at him or something? I mean, it's just so crazy to think that. Why would we call Cito if we have a dead body on the boat?
To be very clear, when you are professing your innocence and you are passionately talking about your alibis and talking about how you would never do this and strongly advocating for you did not do this, that is not in and of itself proof of innocence. We can think about many, many cases where people have advocated and said like they did not do anything. I think about Rafael Palmeiro, who was testifying in front of Congress during the steroid trials for baseball, holding up his finger and saying, I have never used steroids. Then it turns out he did test positive and negatively ruined his legacy. Also, Lance Armstrong, maybe the most passionate defender of his own truth, of his own innocence. Turns out he was actually cheating and lying the whole time.
Correct. They don't understand that no matter how much you tell us we're innocent, we didn't do this, it would take the investigation being concluded. It would take the grand jury. It would take a conclusion to this for people to say, okay, you're not gonna talk loud enough or make enough threats to get people to stop considering you a suspect. That's just not gonna happen. You are a suspect until further notice, bro. And that's just the way it's gonna be. right? Don Lemon told him, bro, you should be hiring like a crisis PR team, not a defamation attorney who can't really list the defamation that's been done upon you guys, right? Like, they like brought this guy to sit in during the interview. As they're talking, the guy is like tapping his cap. I don't know the reason why a lawyer will be there like tapping his cap suspiciously. Now, it could very well be, he's tapping the cap to kind of steer and direct them in an interview. But even that is like suspicious and quite odd. But saying, people defamed you, but not really listing the actual defamation claims while asking people to apologize for the claims is absurd. It's absurd. It's not helping your case. Going after the mother during this interview is not helping your case. It's making you guys look even more like villains. A crisis PR team is what they need, not a defamation attorney, not Trump's attorney.
In the internet, in the bowels of the internet. But when they were asked in the interview to give specifics, and we're going to play it for you in a minute, specific examples of what had actually happened to them in public, the examples got a little fuzzy. Now, look, I don't know who's advising them. As I said yesterday, in my opinion and my experience doing this, they're not getting good advice. Now, if they look, hey guys, it's easy. You can get to me. It's easy. My information is out there. You need a good crisis PR person. I can give you a handful, if not 10, of a good crisis PR person who will either tell you what to say and not to say, or just advise you most of the time to STFU. Because as many people as there are in the world, that's how many opinions there are. And you're going to hear all of them on the internet.
And you can't do anything about it. You literally can't. You can't, right? Your attorney, who's Trump's powerhouse attorney, them sitting within that interview telling people, oh, it's going to hurt. We're going to get you and it's going to hurt. You won't be able to do anything about it. Bro, that don't help your case. Bro, all that does is turn people off against you, man. Right? All that does is scream privilege. You got Donald Trump's attorney. What type of regular kids is getting Donald Trump's attorney to represent them? That already screams privilege. Like, people look at that and they already think spoiled brats, spoiled rich kids. They already think, okay, yeah, right? Like, like the rich and fortunate. To be able to pick up your phone and get Donald Trump's attorney to come and defend you during an interview. Come on, man. You're making yourself the villain. Just be quiet or go sit down with a neutral platform. At this point, just be quiet. Don't say nothing.
So these boys saying, like, don't you think that if we had done something, we wouldn't have done this? It just reeks of, like, not understanding that just because you are passionately trying to convince me of something does not mean that it's not true. And it's there's a lot more here we're going to get into, but I just want to make sure that you highlight, like, the investigation needs to pull out real evidence of what happened or what didn't happen. And someone saying they didn't do it is not evidence of innocence.
I mean, why would we call the Coast Guard? Why would we do the things we did if we know we killed somebody? I think people, regardless of who it is going to believe what they want to hear. If they want to believe that my friends and I had something to do with Nolan dying, then they're going to believe that regardless of what you put out. But you put out, Brandon, that a clip of the boat when Wyatt was on the phone with Cito, and it is boldly clear that Nolan was not on the boat with us. You can literally almost see down to the deck. And as you can see in that picture, everybody is completely casual while Wyatt's on the phone with Cito. Yeah, we were scrambling around trying to get the boat fixed, but the guys were, in the video, you can see me, I'm sitting on the bow. If there was someone dying on the boat, why would everybody just be sitting there waiting to either get towed in or, in the first place, like Jack said, why would Wyatt call Cito? It's crazy. The reason we turned down Coast Guard is, why would we call Coast Guard if Cito could pull us in? But we fixed the boat and we ran into Fort Bayou, and that's it. The Cito call was completely enhanced, and these people just want to believe what they want to hear. And that's exactly what they're doing. So
if I were doing this interview, here's a question I would ask. Who was recording your boat? Why were they recording your boat? at that exact moment, because it could be a suspicious activity like you guys are trying to establish an alibi. And lastly, couldn't Nolan have been on that boat? That question was not asked, so we do not know what these young men, how they would have explained that away.
At some point, they have to realize that sitting down with Officer Tatum is doing more harm than good. You see how that brother right there was able to just hear what they said and just formulate doubts and holes in like whatever they said like that fast? That's what a seasoned interviewer is supposed to do. A seasoned interviewer is supposed to conduct the interview where when you leave the interview, you're not left with anything else. Y'all sit down for 3 hours, discuss everything, ask every question, ask every rebuttal, ask every devil's advocate. Have them sit through everything. And afterwards, there's really no question left to ask. There's really no other alternative left to explore. The internet at that point will have to determine, okay, do we believe him or do we not believe him? And then wait for the investigation. But every time you pop up, something new. They threatened to take our life at the restaurant. And then the homie next to you say, I didn't hear them threatening to take our life. I just heard one guy tell us it's probably best that we leave because these other people, might be on some nonsense. Right? But this brother right here is really articulating the reason why they needed to sit down with somebody thorough. Because for example, Nancy Grace. I'm sure Nancy Grace would give these kids a fair interview if they wanted it. Like, I'm sure, right? Like, she'll ask the tough questions, right? Like, she'll come across as tough, but she'll ask the right questions. And she'll have rebuttals, and she'll concede on certain things. And if they are truly innocent, if they truly did nothing wrong, it shouldn't even matter who they sit down with. They should feel comfortable walking in with Trump's powerhouse attorney next to him. They should feel comfortable walking into any environment. Ask me whatever you want to ask me. I'm here. What's up? What's up with Damn It Bart? Why was they saying, oh my God, he's dead? Who was you talking about? But when Tatum strategically avoids certain questions or avoids certain framings or avoids certain things that make them look terrible, we now have to wonder, why are they avoiding certain questions? Go sit down with somebody thorough.
It's just crazy to me that people have tried to twist this and twist the audio. When we came out with the first interview, it debunked half these lies, and now you don't hear about any of it. You don't hear about the pool party because it was on June 27th. You don't hear about anything else that was mentioned. Thousands of lies. And now, the audio comes back, and all of a sudden we can hear Nolan yelling in the background, screaming, we're screaming about how he's dead. That's just a complete lie. And it's another lie to push this narrative that people don't want to turn down. It's insane to me.
What's interesting to me here is that they're turning this case into a defamation case about the public having their own theories, hypotheses, and ideas about what might have happened on that day to Nolan Wells. And they're turning it to that and away from the actual investigation of what might have happened to their friend and brother, as they refer to him. And that seems very odd to me. If you really cared about him, you really loved him, you really considered him like a brother, you'd be far more interested in the truth than caring so much about what the public thinks about what you may or may not have done. But that clearly isn't the case here. Like, they are very interested on what the public thinks of what they did or didn't do. And so much so that they're turning this into a case about their own perceptions and how people are perceiving them, and away from the actual investigation to what may have happened to Nolan Wells on that day.
First of all, with respect to Warren, if you just murdered your best friend on an island, the dumbest thing you could do would be to call the Coast Guard, to call a federal law enforcement agency and tell them, hey, can you guys go out and check out this island and look for Nolan Wells? Well, that's exactly what Warren did. Warren called the Coast Guard. And that is one of many very compelling facts. He got back and he called the Coast Guard. Does that sound like a guilty man to you?
That's more what I was talking about before. Simply saying, if I were guilty, would I have done this? Is not in and of itself proof of innocence. As Lance Armstrong also said, like he said many, many times. If I were guilty, would I have allowed myself to have been tested this many times? Would I be the single most tested athlete on the planet? If I were actually guilty of anything, would I have done this, this, and this?
Also, by the way, when he says if they just killed their friend, the single-handedly, all right, dumbest thing to do would be to call the Coast Guard. Well, when they asked him, hey, do you want the Coast Guard to come out? They said no. So when they asked him, do you want the Coast Guard to come out? They said no, we don't. No, don't send the Coast Guard out. So you answer your own question. This is what y'all just gotta be quiet, bruh. Okay? Now they said the reason why they didn't want the Coast Guard to come out was because they already they were already being told, or they fixed their problem already, right? Like they fixed the boat up already. But then why would he say, hey, if you murder your friend, the dumbest thing you would want to do would be to call the Coast Guard? Well, they did. They said the Coast Guard shouldn't come out in that call specifically, and y'all heard it. So, I don't know if that was like a Freudian slip, right? But I don't know. Hey, listen, man, I ain't trying to get sued. I don't know if that was like the conscious slip, and I don't know, bruh. I don't know, man. And Don Lemon even touched on like how ridiculous this interview was as well, bruh. Like how, they went ahead through every stop to present themselves as victims, but when they were asked, to provide examples on how they were victims, on how they were being harassed, they couldn't provide anything, like at all. And there's this like one incident that we covered in our last video on this where it was three of them. They all talked about the same incident, right? They all talked about the same incident, but they had different versions of the same incident. One person said, they told us they was gonna take our life. The other person says, I never heard that. The other person says, no, somebody else told us we gotta leave because somebody else was gonna get us. If they have different stories about the same incident they just experienced, apparently like within the last couple weeks, then what makes us think that their memory is correct when they can't even get like a recent event correct? They can't even be on the same page with a recent event they all apparently experienced together.
And then also describing being recognized in public and people asking you about something you said or did or appeared in is not harassment. That's called the First Amendment. That people are able to say, hey, aren't you the guy on the thing? And didn't you say this? You have every right to walk away and say, thank you, nice to meet you, I'm not interested in that, and keep going. Now, if they get in your face and start pushing the phone and the camera in your face and all that, that's a whole different thing. Invading your personal space, that's a whole different thing. But someone saying, hey, young man, aren't you the guy that why would you say something like that? You don't have to participate in that. You can just say, I'm not interested. Or you don't have to say anything, you just walk away. One of them described a woman recognizing him in a restaurant and showing him the earlier interview on her phone, one of his earlier interviews. They left. And then according to them, some friends who stayed behind were allegedly threatened, okay? Some friends who stayed behind were allegedly threatened. So, but we were specifically asking about the people in the interview who said that they had been harassed. Another example involved a friend named Trayston, supposedly being denied a Gatorade and a Red Bull at a store. Now, Trayston is one of their African-American friends. And they're describing his experience with allegedly being harassed or whatever the interaction was. That may be harassment of their friends. It may be ugly behavior, but it is not the same thing as the three men sitting there describing repeated direct attacks against themselves. And when the interviewer kept asking for concrete examples, I kept waiting for one involving them directly. Now, that does not mean that threats have not happened, but they're in an interview and they're answering questions. They also said that they have received death threats online. Awful. And I don't doubt that they have. I don't know. It means that When they were asked for specific in-person examples involving themselves, much of what they described involved other people around them. That distinction really matters, especially because they have hired a defamation lawyer.
If they're saying harassment, trauma, and pain is a part of why they're suing, defamation, you have to prove certain things, right? How did this affect your life, right? If they're saying, we're being harassed, and the harassment that they quote unquote have is with their other friends who, by the way, conveniently was not at the interview, right? They list out a myriad of harassment claims, of threats, of but the people who received the bulk or the worst of it conveniently was not present at the interview. If you're coming to do an interview to address the public, to address people, right? Wouldn't it be wise to bring the people that you claim are firsthand witnesses of the harassment and the threats, the people who you say they looked them in their eyes and told them, we are going to take your life? Shouldn't you bring those people so they can explain it? And even if they do somehow bring those people probably got a claim for something. It probably won't be defamation because nobody knows their names, according to these kids. That these people are unknown. They were just with them. They left, but somehow those people stayed even though they left. And those people got harassed. Like this whole story is just convoluted and absurd, man. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. But if you're claiming defamation, you should probably list how you have been impacted, pain and suffering that you suffered, as well as, the instances of defamation. The lawyer would not name an instance of defamation, a claim of defamation. He wouldn't list nothing at all. And if you're putting out a public challenge for people to apologize, then put out statements that you feel like they should apologize for. Say, hey, we've seen a couple of podcasters, they said this, they said this, they said this, they said this. Because I'm sure if there's one narrative or one agenda, it's probably shared by a couple different platforms. Hey, there are a few people who've been saying this. A few people have been saying, damn it, Bart was said. Damn it, Bart was never said. You guys, now that'll be absurd because damn it, Bart was 100% said, but that would be something you could push on, but they didn't list anything, right? Now, the therapist will further explain some more unusual behaviors from them.
Again, I'm not saying that these young men did anything. What I am saying is simply stating you didn't do it and saying it would have been really stupid of me to do ... if I had done anything is not evidence of innocence. We know that criminals often do really stupid things and get caught from doing the really stupid things that they do. So this just seems odd to me.
All right, now these are all American young men, incredible young men.
Referring to them as all American young men is an interesting phrasing as he's talking about his friends, and harkens back to the perception of we are clean-cut, white, good young men who couldn't have done this. That's intentional.
And they did a lot more than just that. I won't go through all of it now, but they did a lot of heroic things after the fact, and they did the best they could. And they tried for their dear friend. All of their actions are the actions of innocent men, not guilty men. And again, they are categorically, completely, and totally innocent.
I saw another clip where one of the young men referred to Nolan's mom as Miss Wells, which, again, I find odd because you were supposed to be his friend and brother, and you would know that she went by either Wansley as her last name or Wells Wansley. When I think back to my childhood, I can't remember a single time mispronouncing my best friend's parents' names. I mean, these are unusual things. Now, look, I don't know what these boys did or didn't do, and I don't know what they know or don't know. It could be just as likely that they saw something they're not saying that they saw. It could be they know what happened to them, even if they didn't do it. They just saw the circumstance that led to it. Maybe they know nothing and are completely innocent. I don't know. But when you make videos like this, you increase scrutiny. You increase the scrutiny on this situation.
And the only people they have to blame is themselves or the people advising them to do these stupid things. these people clearly, right, don't got their finger on the pulse of things. If they feel like these interviews are a good idea, they're just not. They're just not a good idea, right? But let me know in the comment section, what do you guys think about this, okay? If you're still watching this video and you want to watch another good video, then click on this video right here somewhere on my screen, somewhere here, or here, or here, or here, somewhere on my screen to find out about this really terrifying problem No Jumper has on their hands. I'm going to see you guys in this No Jumper video somewhere on my screen. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.